fast forward to being about 21, and I became an associate. I became a media broker for Spike TV. And what I was doing is I was buying media, police chases, armed robberies, any media that I could accumulate. It's a long story how I got into that, but I mean, essentially I got hooked up with somebody that was working for them, and he needed content. This was before YouTube had been catapulted to the place that it's at now. And what I would do is call police stations, and I'd be like, hey, I'm a media broker. Do you have any police chases? I'd buy them for a certain $300, and then I'd go sell it to Spike for $1,500. I was doing it
That's
consistent.
an interesting kind of niche. Now, during that time, were you using smack
Now I'm addicted to crack, smoking crack.
Oh, Lord.
Hundreds of dollars worth a day, $600 worth sometimes in one day, and I'm shooting heroin every day. My habit grew to gargantuan levels, and I had to support myself beyond the legal money. I was making sometimes $3,000 in a week brokering the media, but it wouldn't satiate my habit, because my habit was, and I had a girlfriend that was doing drugs with me, so it's like I'm feeding both of those gorillas, you know? And at that point, I had met somebody that was selling club drugs on a big scale.
We're talking like ecstasy, Molly.
Ecstasy, yeah, it was MDMA, MDA, DMT, a lot of hallucinogens, DMT, LSD, mushrooms, ketamine, club drugs, stuff that was off the radar, so to speak, with the DEA. And this guy was fronting me kilos of it. And Molly had not been popularized by popular culture at that point. It's 06, 07. Yes, it was around in the 90s and the rave culture and the dance culture of the 80s, whatever. But now it's in mainstream hip hop songs you hear on the radio. It wasn't at that moment.
It wasn't glorified.
It wasn't, people didn't, you said Molly in 06, 07, people didn't even know what you were talking about, you know? And I started making a lot of money from that. And I made so much money selling drugs that I stopped doing the media brokering stuff. And I started laundering money with art. I was buying like Roy Lichtenstein, Andy Warhol, Pablo Picasso lithographs. My logic behind that was I could buy a lithograph, which is like a silk screen of a painting with signed numbered edition. You can buy an Andy Warhol soup can for $18,000. You can hang it on your wall, and it's as good as cash. You can liquidate that at any time. You can always find an art broker, take a little loss, and get cash immediately, and it legitimizes the money. My theory was, if police ever raided my house, they look at a soup can on the wall, they're not going to think that it has the monetary value that it has, and it was a way to safeguard my illicit money. So I started making so much money with the club drugs. My heroin habit grew exponentially at that point. So I go from doing maybe 3 or 4 grams a day to like 11 grams a day, which is a really, really big habit. Heroin dealers in Santa Barbara couldn't keep up with me. You know, it's just I'm buying so much stuff. So I started going down to East LA and scoring from
like Boyle Heights area,
yeah,
like
Boyle
Soto
Heights,
Street,
Soto by USC Medical Center.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
You know, we were talking about that before the show. That part of East LA, or sometimes the avenues, Alhambra. There were, you know, sometimes South Central even. It just depended on who I was meeting and what was going on that day. But I start selling heroin, and I become a de facto heroin dealer because I just need to sustain my own habit, and no dealers can keep up with me. So I'm having to go down to LA, picking up a pound at a time. Then it gets to like I'm doing 2 pounds in a week. And I'd say at that moment, I probably was bringing the most weight into Santa Barbara at that time. It's not that big of a place.